All right, everybody. This is Chris with Babel Corp Roleplay. That's a new one to say. I got to get used to that. We are live with our first live play. Tonight we're going to be playing Shaoyun, which is a ICRPG or Index Card RPG second edition setting that I'm working on, based in Mythic Korea and China, kind of a more influential of the media that surrounds those topics in Shangxi novels, basically focusing on kind of the elements of Taoism and Buddhism inside the culture and kind of the mythos behind that. We're going to see some stuff that is kind of classic to Korean folklore tonight, especially with one of our monsters that we'll bring up. And these guys are going to be playing some of the new ICRPG classes that we've developed for this setting. So let's go down the line and introduce everybody. And if you want to take the time to say what you're going to be playing tonight, that'd be great. Let's go ahead and start with Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Davies. I'm going to butcher this name, but I'm playing a Sulsa. Is that how it's pronounced?
Solsa, yeah.
Sulsa. Kind of a rogue-ish type character by the name of Minzo.
Minzo, okay. My notepad has escaped me. Give me 1 second here. Here's something I can write on. Minzo, okay. Perfect. And Grayson, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Grayson Akins, and today I'm going to be playing a Jeja, which is like a martial artist, monk type character. And his name, he doesn't really have a name. Everybody just calls him Wanderer, or Wan for short.
Okay. And Matt?
I am playing someone who is just known as simply as the water that walks, but he takes a name from a Western piece of scripture from the Western Kingdom, and the name is just simply Flaga. So you either know him as the water that walks or Flaga, depending on who you are.
All right. So I know that ICRPG is new to a few of you here. I want to take a few moments just to make sure you guys have any basic questions you have answered. It's a pretty simple system. If you've played anything like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition or any other D20 game, it's going to feel very familiar to you, except for it's been a lot more streamlined. It's focused mostly on the character, what you equip yourself with, and what you utilize inside the scenes. It is a little bit more action focused and a little bit more of like kind of a quick draw mechanics to it. So you're going to find that combats will go a little bit faster. Hits are going to feel a little harder, but you're also going to feel like you're a little bit more powerful as well at the same time. So did you guys have any questions about system things that I can answer real quick before we just double check and make sure everybody's good with characters?
See, the one thing that escaped me a bit would be the continual time aspect of it.
Okay. So basically how it works is we are always in rounds. Everything is always done in a turn-based system. So even when we're considered to be in downtime, for example, I'm going to go, okay, Minzo, I think that's about all you can do for your turn. It's the Wanderer's turn, and we're just going to continue rotating through. It helps progress and push the story a little bit. I know that me as a GM, when I get to the downtime phase, I'm a little bit more liberal with the time. I basically shift turns when it feels appropriate, not necessarily when I think like 3 minutes has passed and that's all of your time. Does that help answer it, or did you have any further questions?
No, that was it.
Okay. So, sure.
So for example, in your diversion from ICRPG for Shaoyun. There are a couple classes with multiple starting rewards. Do you pick one or do you get all of it?
So let's just kind of jump into character creation stuff real quick, and I'll make sure that everybody's up to pace. So just real quick here, for building your character, you're going to assign points to your stats. The number of points that you're going to have is, let me just double check it here. It should be 6. Yeah, 6 points to distribute amongst your stats. And that's your strength, dexterity, con, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. Basically what this means is if you have a bump in any of those stats, also your armor and effort can be improved. Your basic work, weapon damage, magic effect, and ultimate can all get a plus from these stats. When you go to roll for those things, if you have a plus in there, you get to add that to your roll. The type of roll that you're going to make depends on what type of action you're taking. If you're doing an action that would be considered as basic work, this would be like working with your hands, raw wits, things like that. Unless you have an item that modifies it, you would roll kind of like an attack roll. That's an attempt roll using one of your base stats, the strength, dexterity, con, intelligence, wisdom. So like just to punch someone, if you're not like a martial artist and have the right kind of gear, you would make a strength check or a dex check, whichever one you think fits narratively what your character is doing, whether it's like a haymaker or you're doing like a kung fu move. Once you hit, you would roll basic work, which would be kind of the equivalent of doing damage. Think of everything as attack and damage. When you want to open up a treasure box, you're going to attack the box and damage it. And that's pretty much how the attempt and effort works. So is everybody at the point where they've assigned stats on their character?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Next, if you are inside the core rulebook, it'll be page 25. You're going to choose your starter loot. Inside Shaoyun, I've come up with starter loot that's specific to the setting, so do please stick with those. If you've chosen a class, it does outline like what your starter equipment is. Those are suggestions. You don't have to stick with that list. So to answer your question, Matt, basically you're going to get 1 off the starter loot list, and then you'll have equipment and weapons, which is page 26. You'll get 3 of those. And then for weapons, you'll get 3 of those, and stick with the Shaoyun list on weapons as well.
I was actually referring to the starter reward. That was more like a class skill.
Oh, for the Moo, you get all of them. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
So the Moo is a little bit different. There's not really a good parallel inside the current ICRPG rules. It's more of a like a shaman or an exorcist, just to kind of give people an idea. All right, so if you guys have your starter gear done, your stats done, then you're pretty much ready to roll. Does anybody have any questions that you want to double check on their characters before we start? All right, then.
Sorry, just one more, I guess. So if I was creating the Moo and I had like a ritual book, aka a spell book, would I be tapping into any other kind of spells, or would I just be focusing on the one int spell that's in the class build?
So at the beginning, you're going to have the Moo's a little bit different. They have a mark of scripture, so they're encouraged to basically take tattoo casting.
Yep.
Your spells will be like tattooed on you, and they'll be like holy scriptures is the idea. The spell that you're going to start with is exorcism. However, during the journey, you are able to discover more intelligent spells. You'd be able to tattoo them on yourself. The cool thing about the tattoo magic is your body functions as a as a spell book, and you can put up to 10 spells on your body.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just I feel like the magic side of both your adaptation and the second edition need a little bit of clarity. So I like hearing that. Thank you.
Yeah. Basically every sort of advancement, no matter how like granularly small it is, it's going to be found as an item. And the items, basically you equip them to be able to unlock powers. Is kind of the best way to describe it.
That is pretty awesome as a system idea.
Chris, I do have a question about the path of the Dojang. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. It is not ready. That's the best answer I can give you.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
You need like a spell book or something, but that's fine.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked that one out. When you get your advancements, if I tell you to take a milestone reward, stick with the ones that are written that don't tell you to go down Path of Dojang. Okay. Basically, in the ICRPG Worlds book, they introduced a new type of advancement called milestone. I really liked it. Basically, you have to get 2 from the first tier before you can move to the second tier, and then 2 from second tier before you go to third tier. And so it made a lot of sense for like mystical martial arts type abilities. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm super happy with it. So for now, let's not touch on that side. All right. So to start us off here, you guys have been on the road for almost a fortnight now, traveling north to escape the oncoming flood season. It's been days since you've seen trees marked by passing animals. Strangers still, you've seen no sign of spirits or fae in the morning mists. The rice paddies you passed the other day show signs of frost along the edges when the rains with the rains. You could swear that you feel beads of snow on your face and cloak, but it's too early for snow. Still, you press on, and to make matters worse, you see a curl of black smoke rising above you, just ahead in the distance. So we're going to jump in right here, and you guys can just start role-playing and interacting and telling me what you guys want to do next.
So I think the Wanderer, he didn't see the smoke first. He caught the scent of it on the air. I think he was lost in thought and contemplation up till this point, pondering the lack of creatures around him. And he would look up and point it out to his 2 friends, the column of smoke in the sky.
Is there a village up there? I mean, is that coming from a village, do you think? Or is there a temple? Have you been this way before, Wanderer?
At the site of the smoke, the water that walks would flinch ever so slightly, but then press forward diligently. You hear the clang of the rings of the ring staff, the kakara, as he walks, each imprint of the staff making its mark in the mud. And he would squint, one of his eyes discolored and burnt, as he would sniff the air as well and say, perhaps there is a raiding party afoot. Are we prepared for that kind of chaos? And he would cast a glance to the monk.
Whatever lays ahead of us, I think they need our help, and we should lend our aid.
So the words of the exorcist hang in the air. A raiding party. It's the rain season, and you are late to get out of the more lower regions. The seasons have been especially hard, and so the people have stayed longer inside the lower regions simply to gather their rice before they move back into the upper regions to seek safety from the flooding. But you've overstayed your welcome. You know that raiding parties are not uncommon, especially during this time of year. As you get closer, you do find that there is a village around the corner. It's mostly small steepled houses, and you can see smoke and fire rising up ahead of you. You can hear the screams of peasants, and a woman comes running down the road, and she falls about 20 feet in front of you. As you instinctively move to her, because this is a story of wandering heroes, it wouldn't be the same without you doing so. You hear rustling, and out of a bush comes a creature that you all recognize, especially the moo. You've had interactions with these things before. They're fairly common. They're called dokebi. Dokebi are Korean goblins or small ogres. It's roughly about 4 feet tall and carries a club with it. The moo, however, being a little bit more knowledgeable, if you want to learn something about this creature, because it is a creature of magic, you could make an attempt to learn something about it right now.
I would like to, as the monk presses forward, the moo would firmly plant his staff, his long violet straight hair, cast in the in the rainy winds as he I'll attempt. So how this works is D20 plus a stat versus target.
Yeah, and I think wisdom or intelligence would be appropriate for this.
I'd like to use intelligence if I have a choice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I got 12.
Okay, so my fault. I should have told you guys the scene DC before we started. The scene DC is 10, so you're going to pass it. So the creature that stands in front of you, you recall reading inside books, and you've interacted with dokebi before. Dokebi, for the most part, are harmless creatures, maybe a little mischievous, but never vile or violent. This creature seems to have intent to harm. Looking over its features and the patterns that its horns are in, you suddenly realize that this is what's known as gay dokebi. The gay dokebi is an evil dokebi. It's contrasted with the more common charm dokebi, the one that you would come across for the most part, the harmless ones.
His eyes would squint and cast over to the others and say, "This is a creature of evil. We have to be careful." And he'd have like violent but like controlled flashbacks to flame and pandemonium and a temple burning intermittently throughout the like cracks of lightning and the rain. But he's composed, and the shake of the ring staff kind of centers him, and he lets the others advance forward even further as he kind of takes a long glance at this creature.
Yeah, definitely. And when you plant your ring staff and those rings ring out, there's almost this initial reaction from the dokebi that sees you, and it reels back, and suddenly your rings have caught its attention. Next up is Minzo.
So hearing Flaga say that this is an evil creature, intent to harm, she kind of prepares herself and gets ready. She grabs her The short bow. I don't know how you pronounce that.
It's okay. You can use the English words. Don't worry about it.
The short bow.
I put the Korean words to give us setting, but I certainly understand that a lot of people are going to go with the English words. Totally fine with it.
So she grabs that off of her back and she prepares and is ready to fire if it comes to that. If it looks like the creature is about to attack. Either the woman
yeah, it definitely looks like it's going to go after that woman that's on the ground bleeding, trying to run away.
Okay, then she would actually then just shoot it.
Okay. So go ahead and make an attempt using dexterity since it's a ranged weapon.
So that's a 15.
Perfect. You've exceeded the target number. So you're going to do weapon damage unless you have something that changes that.
So I put a point into weapon effort. So does that mean
perfect.
like just like a d6 then +1?
Yes, exactly.
So that would be 3 points.
Okay, perfect. So the arrow sinks into the dokebi kind of right between where the collarbone and the trapezius muscle would be. You see it kind of reel back, and this is the opposite arm of its club. It hisses in pain and starts to swing down its club. It's actually not going to go for you guys. It's going to go for the target in front of it. But as it's screaming, you can hear the whoops and calls of other dokebi moving in towards you. Quickly, just listening to the callers, you can hear at least 3 more of them moving in. So next up is the Wanderer. Oh, I'm sorry. To resolve the action of the dokebi, he hits the woman and she collapses. You're not entirely certain if she's dead or unconscious.
Okay. So as this dokebi is looking over this seemingly deceased lady, you'd see the Wanderer just reach out and grab. Is this a smaller creature or is it about the same size as us?
It's about 4 feet tall.
Okay. So you would see him reach out and like grab the club and kind of fling him around to face him, and would just quickly like, jab his palm into the throat of the creature, trying to like, stun it almost.
Okay. So are you looking to, just so I have a better idea of what your intent is, are you looking to like disable him, or are you looking to do damage?
Damage.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, go ahead and roll an attempt.
Okay. So that is a 11.
Okay, so an 11 beats the room DC of 10. That's going to hit.
And that will be 4 effort.
All right, perfect. The dokebi takes the strike in the throat and surprises you. He takes his chin and jams it down, catching your fist. And then there's like this exchange where he takes you back a couple steps because he's caught you off guard, but you find yourself wrenching your hand free, suddenly in shock that the dokebi had such martial prowess. The dokebi takes a fighting stance, and his club comes up behind him, almost like a sword, as if he was going to charge at you. Next up is the Wanderer. Or sorry, not the Wanderer, the Wanderer that walks.
I think Flaga is an easier thing to remember, but so the Moo, like purposefully stayed behind, right? So in this case, I'll I haven't played an online game in a while, so I would like to describe my character. So
Yeah,
he tosses aside his cloak, which is attached to this like left shoulder pauldron, revealing a long-sleeved hand that ends in a glove. It's kind of like a one-piece covering his entire left arm, and he uses it to grip the bottom half of the ring staff. And the grip is firm, and he pulls it from the muck, tossing mud into the air as he does so, and he starts to starts to run, and I'm going to use the move dash
Okay, perfect.
to close the distance and actually kind of circle around behind this creature if possible.
Yeah, dash will put you right behind it. It's just a near move to get to engage with it.
Yeah, and this is purposeful because I know that my movement with my staff causes a great deal of distraction and noise. So I'm moving around it,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
disorient it, and also draw its attention like backwards.
Yeah, so to kind of like cinematic this up a little bit inside our heads, the moo basically runs along the side, and you can hear the splashing of each footstep, little like sprays of waves with each, or sprays of water with each one of them. And it's almost as if his name is partially true. He's moving as if he's not actually hitting the bottom of each one of these puddles. He slides over to a stop, and there's this big spray where it fans out water, and you see 3 other dokebi that have finally burst into the scene, and one of them has its mouth open and just gets a mouthful of muck and water, spits it out, and starts growling. The rings immediately catch the other 3's attention, and the gay dokebi, the big one, turns and kind of glowers back, looking at the smaller 3 that just joined. These ones are about 3 feet tall. These seem to be more like charmed dokebi, the ones that would normally be innocent and not hurtful to humans. It is their turn, so the big one is going to take a strike at the Jeju, who is engaging with it. And it's one of those practiced choreographed scenes. He takes a swing with the club, lunges forward, and punches with left, right, does a sweeping kick, and every single step, the Jeju takes a step back and swats a hand back, or sidesteps a punch. The sweeping kick, he jumps over and lines up for his next strike. Minzo, though, it is your turn before a return fire from the Jeju can be done.
So Minzo is watching this dance happening between these 2 in front of her, and she has got another arrow, and she's ready to let it loose. So she kind of waits until the timing is right, and she looses an arrow towards the dokebi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because he's in combat with it, does it change what I need to roll?
No changes. There's no disadvantage or anything that you got to worry about. If you miss, there is a chance that you would hit your ally. That's the one thing.
I did miss. I got a total of 5.
Okay. Let me just roll a quick die of fate here. Okay, so your arrow goes wide, and it actually kind of plants itself halfway between the 2 martial artists that are fighting in the center and the moo that's a little bit further back from you. The 3 charmed dokebi are going to go ahead and take their turn. They're moving in on the moo, and they're going to attempt to swarm and work together against you. They're going to do super poor. They claw and bite and snap at you. But you can see, being so close to them, Flaga, that they seem to be controlled by something. They don't seem to have full heart in their attacks, whereas the first dokebi that you saw was very earnest in its attacks and is moving with intelligence. These things seem to be more like puppets.
Well, is there an identifying physical feature of the first dokebi?
Yes, it's a little bit bigger. It's about 4 feet tall instead of 3 feet tall. And the first one has a different set of horns along its head. It has bigger, longer horns and a set of 4 of them. These ones have one singular horn on the front of their head, like a little unicorn.
The violet hair blowing in the wind, the horrific burn on the left side of Flaga's face, like flashing in the lightning of the storm, he turns to the others and says, I believe the many-horned one is the source. Take him out. The others. And he looks to them. Weak minds, but simple spirits. They do not wish harm on this place. And I believe in this game, talking is free for the most part.
Yeah, it's free for the most part, so long as I feel like it's appropriate for free. I think that that's fine for free. It is the Wanderer's turn, however.
Okay. I was borderlining on not free anyway.
Yeah, it went a little long, but I think we'll say that that's free. Basically, you're kind of talking over as the Wanderer continues his next phase of strikes.
Yeah, I envision it as I'm being surrounded.
Mm-hmm.
So, as the water that walks is yelling towards the Wanderer as he's in this almost dance with this larger Dokebi, he nods his head in agreement and says, cut the head from the snake. And would go to, kind of jumps up in the air a little bit and tries to bring his foot down on the face of this Dokebi, trying to crush in its nose. All right, that will be another 11 to hit for 11 effort.
For 11 effort. All right, perfect. So, tell me what your attacks look like.
So, they're not quite as they're not as fluid as most Jeja might be. He's more of a almost just like a barely attack. I picture him on the larger size, kind of big and muscular due to his heritage, and he just kind of bears the brunt of what this Dokebi is throwing his way, and then he sees a moment as like the Dokebi slips in the water, just quickly brings a foot up to his face, trying to put it to the ground and end it.
Okay. So, yeah, you kind of put it to the ground and it's not quite done, but you can hear this kind of a creaking sound and you can feel just a release of pressure underneath your foot as the Dokebi starts to slide over to the side. You've broken off one of its horns and caused some serious damage there. So real quick, just so I don't have to type it out here, the 6 stat points you had during character creation, if you put 1 in your armor, that's the stat bonus I'm talking about.
Amazing. Yeah, sorry.
No, it was just faster to say it. So, so yeah, the Dokebi is not broken free yet. I got to attempt that on his. Well, actually, because you didn't attempt to grapple him, he'll just break free on his turn. But you can feel him moving underneath your foot there. The next up is going to be Flaga, though.
Were any of them successful in getting close to me?
They're around you. They're just not very good at attacking.
Also, are you getting a feedback loop from my audio? Just curious.
No.
Okay, good. So he would look to the ones around him and plant his Kakara into the mud, and it would sing for a moment and then ring silent as his hand has left it, and he reaches to his satchel, grabbing a the dagger. he'd grab basically a small piece of carved metal, and he would look to the larger Dokebi and chuck it through the rain, cutting rain as it goes, but I would like to try to use it as a range weapon, whatever that looks like in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a dex attempt.
Okay, cool.
And the collar, the dagger, is a thrown weapon, so that's fine.
Okay. So in that case, it's just D20 plus dex?
Correct. And you're looking to beat a 10.
I got 11.
Perfect. So with an 11, your knife hits home. It's going to pretty much hit into its backside because it's kind of bent over in the muck right now.
Yep. That's perfect. So
weapon damage, since it's a thrown weapon, it still qualifies as weapon damage.
So it's D6?
Yep.
Plus modifiers. Okay. 5 after my +1.
All right then. So with 5 damage, the thing, as it's trying to wrench free, it gets the knife in its backside and it jerks, and you can see it start kind of flopping around, and it hits the ground. For just a moment, there's kind of this moment where reality kind of shifts. The Moo has seen this a couple of times, being in the line of work that he is. The creature is returning to the spirit realm. Any sort of creature like this, most of these kind of wild spirits, they don't really die. They just simply phase out of our world. After a few moments, there's a pile of sand and what looks like possibly something underneath it, just left behind by this creature. The 3 charmed Dokebi lash out in pain as the creature is leaving this realm, but moments after it's gone, they seem to be confused, blinking and looking around. They're not really doing anything aggressive. They just genuinely seem confused as to why they're here. So I am going to start a timer just to give you guys a heads up. Let's get started on let's see, roll a d6. A 3. And this is an environmental timer. The city or the village behind you is on fire. So if you guys want to interact with that, this is a good time for us to work on skills and use skills and stuff like that.
And the Moo would look to his more able companions and say, "To the village. I will deal with the Dokebi here. I will collect the remains so that we can ward off further minions if need be. I will follow shortly."
And Minzo would she would look towards the charmed Dokebi, and she'd keep an eye on them as she, just to make sure that they are, returning back to their normal. And she would go towards the village, but she would be keeping an eye on these guys, making sure that things are okay before she hightails it and runs. So she's going to take a more cautious leave first before she then goes towards the village.
Okay. So moving into the village, you see more houses on fire. There seems to be people with buckets coming from one of the overflowing rivers, thanks to the rain, trying to bucket out water to some of the houses that are burning. There's a few people that are looking for help, and the area that immediately catches your attention is there's a schoolhouse, and there's a teacher that is trying to pull children out of a window. There's several areas where you could help people out. This is basically a good time for you guys to establish yourselves and kind of find ways to help people as best as possible.
The Wanderer would definitely head towards the schoolhouse. And if you're okay with this, I think that on the way, like he almost gets there and he sees the wall that the teacher's pulling the children through the window out, like begin to collapse. So he quickly steps up and just tries to hold it from collapsing down on them as she shuffles them out, trying to get them.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So this is going to be a strength attempt, and it counts as basic work.
Okay.
I believe you have an item that turns your basic work into ultimate effort, though, right?
Yes.
Cool.
The breathing technique scroll. That's a 12 on the die. And then the effort will be just 3, though.
Okay. So the wall basically has a heart of health. Actually, what's the best way to do this? I wouldn't say a heart of health. I know. I'll use clocks. That's a good way to do this. All right, so you gave me 3 spots on a clock, essentially. When it comes to my turn, I'm going to do some damage to that clock, and so long as you're ahead of it, the wall doesn't fall. Makes sense? It's like a tug war.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Okay. So next, I'm going to go to Flaga.
The water that walks weaves through the mud effortlessly and leans down and collects the ashes of the Alpha Dokevi into a satchel.
Okay. Sifting through the ashes, you are able to find his club, and you know that these clubs are items that contain power. It doesn't seem like this is normally one of the types of clubs that would be able to cast spells like a wand or anything. But this club does have a spell engraved into it, similar to the way that tattoos would be engraved on your own flesh.
May I interject as as I start to collect the ashes into the satchel, out of my pauldron slithers my snake. It wraps around my arm and then starts to explore the deceased refuge of the ashes, and it looks as it always does for anything significant. So I'm going to try to implement that mechanic that you created.
Yeah, so the let's see here. So this one, it's roll twice on a loot table. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I believe you get, what is it, the better choice, or you get to choose on that one?
All I know is it's roll twice on a loot table.
Oh, you get twice as much loot. Okay, cool. Then that's even better. All right, so the snake is actually a special kind of snake. You found him a while back, and he actually has the ability to speak, which is probably the reason why you've allowed him to continue with you. If you listen to his stories,
I actually named him Whispers.
Whispers, okay. So if you listen to Whispers' stories, he tells you that he is studying in contemplation to become an Imugi, which is a great celestial dragon. Whispers slithers around, and he takes his tail and flicks aside the dirt underneath where this Dokebi deceased, and reveals something that would have been missed by an less perceptive eye. Whispers says, something is interesting here. And pulls out what looks like kind of like an egg. It's like a Fabergé egg.
Amazing. I grab it and I look at it, but before examining it, I actually don't give it much credit in the moment. I put it into the satchel with the ashes, and I grab my staff that has been embedded in muck, and I remove it and smash it down, and there's a wild splash around me of water cascading and mud cascading as the as the rings sing out to the charmed goblins that remain, and I shake the ashes of the one that possessed them in front of them and hope to garner a reaction as the others help the people in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. These don't take much. When you shake the rings, they actually run in fear. This is the whole reason that most monks travel with a ring staff, is it scares off any non-harmful spirits. They understand that you're coming and they get out of your way. So as soon as they hear the rings sounding, they kind of jump and suddenly come about their wits, realizing that they're in an area where they really don't want to be, especially during the daytime. And they skitter off into the bamboo forest just outside of this village.
And with that, I start walking slowly towards the village.
Okay. All right, so you'll see the same thing that they see. I am going to advance my clock forward, and I'm going to do some weapon damage to that wall. Oop. All right, the wall is still standing, but you can hear it creak and groan underneath you, your might, wanderer, and you can feel the timber starting to shift. The fire has caused too much damage to this wall. You have to kind of adjust your grip to be able to keep it and be able to keep the wall from falling. We're going to go over to Minzo first.
So Minzo has seen the Wanderers trying to hold up this wall that looks like it's going to collapse at any moment, and she goes to help the teacher pull these children out so that you can get them out faster. Then, because who knows how long this wall is going to stand. Let's get these children out.
Okay. So, what are you going to do to help them get him out? Are you physically going in and out, or are you like calling for the children?
So she's pulling them out of kind of like a window.
Okay.
Or is that like there's a small little area? Yeah. So I think Minzo would actually jump in, and she would start lifting up the children to the window so that it's easier for the teacher to grab them on the other side, so we can kind of like double time this.
Let's do a Constitution attempt, just to kind of show that you're basically having the will to stay inside where the fire is and get the children out, that sort of thing.
Not so good. I rolled a 7.
Okay. With a 7, it is considered a failure. So what's going to end up happening this round is the window that you're attempting to pass them out, a timber from the roof falls and breaks itself in half right in front of that window. You're not getting anybody out, but there's still the window the first teacher was at. So you could kind of double your efforts and work together with that teacher next round. Okay, next up is going to be the Wanderer.
Like you said, he feels this timber shift, and he imagine he had initially caught it kind of like almost like a bicep curl, if that makes sense. But he would quickly readjust the grip, kind of throwing it up onto his shoulders, and he feels the heat from this burning timber, but it doesn't faze him. He's part of the heat. He was born in flame, and he's able to bear it as he continues to try and hold up this section of the wall.
There's a moment from like the director's view where we kind of see the Wanderer, and he is a child of the Lotus. He normally has this spirit of the flame that's always with him, and it's almost like you can see the ghost of fire on him. Being this close to the fire, it's almost as if his own fire is so hot it's keeping the other fire back from him.
Nice. Let's see. That's a total of 16 for the target.
Good.
With 9 efforts.
All right, so that clock now has 10 on it, so that's awesome, because you were more likely to fail the first time. Now it's going to take some effort for that wall to come down on you. All right, so
it's definitely handy.
So the teacher scoops out a few more children, Flaga, you have entered into the village. You see what's going on around you. Not only is the schoolhouse on fire, but there's several other buildings. The schoolhouse seems to be having an active rescue by your partners going on right now.
I would slam the Kakara down and start. Would I be familiar to this area?
Yeah, you could have been. You could have wandered through this area. Being a traveling priest, kind of helping people with spiritual needs. You've been around most of the country.
Okay, so I would start to sing a hymn about people and water that and start chanting something in repetition that I hope will invigorate the people working on the wall to maintain it, to fight as bastions of this village.
Okay, so that's going to be a charisma attempt.
Okay. And I envision Flaga, that's actually a really good roll. We got, I don't have any boost to it, but I got an 18.
Okay. So this is going to be a basic effort unless you are using like a spell that includes singing.
No, I don't have a spell. Besides one. But so I basically am slamming my staff as I chant, creating a percussive rhythm as I am egging them on, and I'm intermittently like cutting out my song to actually give real non-religious words of wisdom to the people that are building or basically the people that are fortifying this wall.
Okay.
Hold on. Strength. To the left side. It's giving way, like basically trying to navigate the forces that be in this village, because people defending a place like this, it wouldn't be one person, it'd be many. So I'm trying to
So what was the effort roll?
So can you explain that actually?
Yeah, it's gonna be a basic effort roll, so you're gonna do a D4. When you give me that number, basically if you guys succeed a certain amount, the wall is going to be reinforced, and that will make it stable instead of having to worry about it fall during this rescue.
I rolled a 3 on a D4.
Excellent. So they hear your words, and having the extra set of eyes, it helps them catch areas that they would have missed because they're so enthralled with the fire that's right in front of their face. They begin nailing down boards and trying to bring buckets in to take care of these small fires to kind of keep the wall more stable as the wanderer braces the weak part. The teacher scoops up the final students that are inside of there. I'm advancing my clock. The only one that's left inside there is the salsa and a small child that she's got wrapped up in her arms. You can hear the building creaking and groaning underneath you. The wall will not be going anywhere, but the rest of the room seems to be at kind of its last moments. You have one turn until the building crashes down. Or sorry, one round until the building crashes down.
So I'm inside with the child, the last child. Yeah. So I would look at the floor and notice that it's becoming weak in spots, and so she would kind of do that move where jump from sturdy spot to sturdy spot, because she can read kind of where the floor is more strong and not as weak, and she's running towards the exit with the child to get out of this place before the floor collapses.
Yeah, you move to the exit, and there's the door itself, you found what's caused it to become blocked. A few moments later, you're pushing the wood out of the way and throwing your shoulder into the door. I do need a strength attempt on that.
Oh my goodness, my dice ate me. I rolled a 1, so that's, I don't know if there's critical failure or anything, but it'd be a 2 otherwise.
Normally there would be, but I don't think there's anything more for critical failure than you are now trapped in the building. It's going to either take someone else rescuing you at this point or something else, but the building is going to come down before your next turn. So, Wanderer, it is your turn. You hear the teacher counting children, and she says something about there being one more, and she's looking through the window, and she says, "Where did the woman go? Where is she gone?" And she can't seem to find Minzo.
Okay, and where I'm standing, I cannot see them either. Correct?
Yes, but feeling the wall, you feel like it's pretty sturdy now. You're not going to have to worry about it coming down. You've got people helping now.
Okay, so I'll definitely drop my hold on it and venture inside this burning school building, looking for Minzo and the child.
As you enter, you find Minzo. She's clutching a small child, and she's throwing her shoulder into the door, and you hear bang, bang. And then there's the third one, and it's just a little bit lighter. You can hear coughing coming from her and the child. The smoke inhalation is overwhelming them, but you've located where they are.
Okay, I would say to them, "Get low. The smoke is not on the floor." And then I would try to kick down this door that they were trying to get through.
Perfect. Go ahead and roll an attempt.
That's a success for 9 efforts.
All right, perfect. The door punches open. It's been pretty damaged by fire, and your foot just completely sinks through. And with like a twist of your kick, you unhinge it, opening it up for them. The three of you get out, and you can hear the building crack and groan. And it's just in the nick of time. The building falls down behind you guys. After what seems like another few minutes, the town is kind of settled. The rains have done their job to help the fire as well as the people bringing buckets in. Peace finally settles over this small village, and you're able to kind of recatch your breath. It seems that only a few people have gone missing, and there are 2 people that have died, but overall, not such a bad loss. Excuse me, for the village, especially considering the rainy season was going to wash it away anyways.
The moose smiles as he's looking at the work of many moving parts, the ecosystem that is the ocean of man. And when he does so, he feels comfort because he knows that here, helping these folk, he will not be alienated for his differences. In fact, he hopes to help them on an honest level that he doesn't usually get to experience. So he simply kneels and and takes humility from the situation as the rain hits him and calms the fire. I'll also take this moment to ask an ICRPG question.
Okay.
So I'm impressed by my my co-player by being so quick to say, this is my action and this is my effort. Mm-hmm. So with efforts, do you add your stat as well?
Effort, if you had invested any of your 6 stat points into those types of efforts, that's when you would add that number.
But otherwise, you don't add anything else.
Correct.
Okay, so you just roll a D4 if it's basic, 6 if it's weapons, D8 if it's magic, D12 if it's ultimate.
Yep.
Okay, cool. It's super simple, but it's also like you need confirmation that it's that
It's a little bit of a shift, so it, yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's that simple? Oh, are you sure though? No, I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, cool.
Now, what have I been doing is I've been rolling my effort die with my D20 just to streamline it a bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good 5th edition technique that carries over. Or any RPG technique, really.
Yeah. All right, excellent. So, as kind of the waters start to recede momentarily, instead of feeling like it's a heavy rain, it feels more like it's a drizzle. The school teacher comes forward and she addresses the three of you. The small group of children behind her are looking at all of you like you're heroes from legends come to life. She says, my name is Ren. I thank you. These children, I don't know what I would have done without you. Is there anything that we can do to help you? We don't have much, unfortunately, anymore since the Dokebi, but we'll do what we can.
I have a setting question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
Being a child of the Lotus, how would the ordinary people view me? Am I kind of like would I be like an outsider to them or something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of like the plane touched in 5th edition. So you have some elemental aspects to you, but you're not terribly uncommon in Shaoyun. You're actually one of the more common people that can be found here.
You're not outsiders like the racism that's applied to like orcs.
No, not like that.
No. You have like eccentric elemental vibes that are like god touched, right?
Mm-hmm. Like if you got into a really backwoods village that like was in the middle of nowhere, people might think that you were like a magic user. They wouldn't necessarily understand what you were racially because you look mostly human.
Okay. And, the way I think I look is, fairly human, but with like gray skin, the color of ash, like a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
And, like maybe small parts that are covered, like with a volcanic rock, is what I was picturing, explaining the natural armor that came with the race.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a good way to put it. In fact, there are some children that are coming up to you and they're like putting their hands to you like it would be a fire. Like they're expecting it to be very hot. And then all of a sudden, like one of them gets real brave and just like touches your skin because it's cool to touch. And like they all scream and run away because this is a kind of a small village. They've probably never seen anybody quite like you.
Okay. Cool. I really like that scene with the small kids.
The children do come up to all of you and express their thanks for you that give you these kind of like soggy rice balls. Everything that has been done here is in ruins. Their food supply has been damaged because the building that used to house all the food burnt down. They were able to save some of it, and they're trying to share with you guys. None of you guys got hurt, but this does count as wet. We're going to call them wet rice balls. If you choose to eat them later on, they heal 5 HP, but they're soggy.
Yes. 5 is 5. Soggy is good. Just put a little bit of soy sauce on it. It's all good.
Yes, we can move into hours portion if you guys want to take some time here.
No, I was just like I thought it'd be a good opportunity to explore ICRPG's differentials of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find that to be the most interesting part of the game. One of them.
We can.
There's a lot that's great about ICRPG. It's my favorite RPG right now, but the time differential is really unique and interesting.
Yeah, so if we look at it in hours, we take the same thing. Basically, we would take turns and say what our character does hour by hour, and we look at it at kind of like a macro vision instead of like a micro interactions.
I love that.
Yeah, this could definitely be basically hours here. We will start with Minzo. What would you like to do first inside the town here now that it's kind of calmed down?
So I think Minza would she would go from basically like group to group, person to person, and just checking on those that were injured and seeing what she could potentially do to help them. If it bandaged them,
Yeah.
get into a drier spot to rest,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be a wisdom attempt, and you're going to use basic work. Actually, I'll give you weapon effort because they're going to give you a medical kit. No, it's basic effort +3 because tools are +3.
So that would be a total of 4. I got a 16 on the roll for wisdom, so effort would be a total of 4.
It's a total of 4. Or did you add there's a 3 yet?
I added 3. I got a 1.
Okay. So yeah, you go around and you start patching people up, and there's a village. I wouldn't say doctor. It's more like someone who kind of knows first aid and how to set bones. That's about the best this village has. It's an older woman that she's probably been at this village pretty much her whole life, traveling back and forth during the rainy seasons. Looking her over, you do kind of recognize that she probably will not make it through this flood season. It's kind of dangerous to get to the highlands, and she's a bit too old for the journey, which may explain why she stayed as long as she did. Okay, so Wanderer, it'll be your turn. What would you like to do here?
I think the Wanderer would be entertaining the children, just like playing with them, keeping their spirits up, so to speak. Maybe it's like maybe like a game of hide and seek in the nearby forest.
Okay, yeah. So you kind of start off as hide and seek, and then the children get so excited because, like I said, they do see you as kind of like a hero from legends. And one of the children comes up. It's a young boy, and he kind of steps in front of you, like very declarative, puffs out his chest, and points his thumb at himself, and he yells at you, "I'm Yo Song Min, champion of Heaven's Gate Temple. You cannot defeat me, Dokebi." And he holds out a little bamboo stick at you. And then all of a sudden the children start whooping and hollering, and they start breaking out into kind of teams, and they're treating you like you're an ogre trying to take their temple.
Perfect. And he's definitely playing along with them, like recoiling at their blows and stuff like that, really playing it up.
Perfect. Give me like a charisma roll here. I want to see if you get some information, because the kids actually do have some stuff that they can tell you.
I do not. No.
Okay. So yeah, you have a great time with the kids. You aren't really able to gather too much information from them, or if they're telling you stuff, you're not really sure what is their make-believe game and what is real, and you're just having kind of a good time entertaining them, so they don't have to worry about the fact that their home's burned down.
Okay.
and then we'll move over to Flaga.
I feel like after the role that the Water That Walks played in the defense of the village, there would be a little bit of religious interest in Flaga to some extent.
I think that's fair.
And he would rebuke it. He would instead try to teach them the value of the family, the value of the village and the community, and try to teach them how the goblins were not that different, but they had a poor leader. And in doing so, he would this would be a simplified version to children, but to elders he would express that with the goblins, he would explain what he had learned kind of about the hierarchy of goblins.
Mm-hmm.
And he explained how he would explain how he learned how to cut the head off the snake, not just because it was evil, but because goblins themselves are not evil by nature. And he would try to express that as best as he could. He would kind of get it.
Yeah.
He'd probably be settled into and enjoying the delights of a scholar in those circles. So how far it would reach within the village is questionable, but he would take on those conversations. But at first, he would rebuke religious interest because he's not that man. He's not the one to do it. He's a hero, but he's a different kind of hero.
Okay, yeah. So the conversations mostly go well. There's actually one person that you engage with, an older man, which is you learn his name is Wu Nam.
Okay.
Wu Nam actually he takes a religious stance against your philosophical stance, and talks about like the religious meaning of dokebi, and he's not necessarily like countering your arguments like aggressively. He's making more of a scholarly debate. Like he's listening, acknowledging your point, and he's like, well, if you consult the bamboo annals, you'll see that the dokebi is, and he kind of lists off a couple different things, which you've learned and from your readings. He's not really citing anything that is too extreme, but you can tell he's very much a scholarly person.
I take all of that into account, and I try to point out examples in Shaoyun history where humans became the monster that led the pack.
Yeah, there's plenty of those. Yeah, and he kind of like nods along, and overall it's a good discussion. After some time, he kind of like strokes at his beard, and he says, Flaga, if you and your friends are in need, this village is not too far from the Heaven's Gate Temple. The dokebi spoke of it. I'm not very familiar with the spirit tongue, but I could swear I heard the words Heaven's Gate. There's probably more of that or whatever sent them to us there. We would certainly appreciate the help. It's normally where our village goes during the flood seasons for protection, since we cannot afford the taxes to access any of the higher grounds in the Eastern Kingdom. But
so you're
more than welcome to join us.
Would you like us to scout in advance of the village, just in case?
And he kind of like sits back like, well, I wasn't going to ask you, but you can tell he totally was going to ask you. And he says, my duty is to the children, much like the teacher. I assist in their lessons. I have to make sure that they're safe on the road. It would be best if a scouting party went ahead.
He'd slightly insecure. He'd probably be measuring your response to his like maiming scar on the entire left side of his face, but he would also be tossing his very shiny and glistening violet hair on the other side over his head, and he would turn on his good side to you and say, I will confer with my companions, but I believe we can take up that task. We can take up that bastion. However, we will need supplies. As you see, the alphas within this tribe are relentless. They have sought you out in the drought season. It's not even the best season to burn a village, as you know.
Yes. Well, this season hasn't been good for many reasons, and this is just only the most recent occurrence.
The drought season, sorry. Correction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I knew where you were going.
Yeah. And he says, does the town does this village have any artifacts indebted to heroes, artifacts of old that you've kept sacred, that you've kept honestly here, that we may draw from, that we may need from now? Because you have not encountered heroes such as these in a time. I know this. And we do not know what we face, because to me, and he looks to the side even though no one's there, this seems like a test.
So Wunam kind of strokes his beard and thinks for a moment, and he says, well, the only artifacts that we have kept are in Heaven's Gate itself, but I know of a back way in that will take you to the shrine room. It is the fastest way to those treasures. It is more dangerous, however, and I cannot take the children there, so I'll have to give you directions and a map. And he starts kind of fishing around on this porch you guys have taken shelter on, and pulls out a bag, or pulls out a piece of parchment from his bag and an inkwell, and begins kind of scratching down a rough drawing of a map. Through conversation, you're able to determine that there are two ways to Heaven's Gate. There's a dangerous cliffside route that you can go. It's much shorter, and it will take you to the backside where you can get into the shrine room where he said that these relics are. Or you can take a little bit longer way, which will be up the mountainside. It's not as steep, and it's a little bit safer to go that direction.
Okay, how detailed is this map?
Fairly detailed. He seems to have studied some level of like artistry, because it seems more like art than necessarily cartography.
Okay. Is it pretty?
Yeah, it's similar to like an ink drawing.
Okay. He would extend his forearm. The wristmost side of which is bare. And he would say, "Have your anchors casted upon my skin. At least as long as my arm is here, my party will know their way. We cannot depend on a map if it is dire." And he'll ask him to have people ink the map on his like upper forearm, on the inside of his arm.
Okay, yeah. So you have the tools to do it, and you can do it to yourself. A small village like this probably doesn't have anybody that can do tattoo work here.
Okay.
Simply
Hey,
because tattoos are mainly like a priest thing or a criminal thing.
Okay, so to fast forward it, if you would just give me the map, I would do
Yeah.
it myself.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how your hour goes. Is we see you with like a needle that you've dipped in some ink, and then you are actually like puncturing into your own arm, just like stitching it into your skin. And we can see other marks of tattoos from the past, like these kind of like ghostly shadows of where you've removed tattoo ink from yourself before. Just to give you a heads up, you did get the Dokebi wand that you would have enough time to see what it actually is. It is
I was gonna spend if I got another term within this village, I would have tried to figure out what the egg was.
yeah. So the egg, the way it works is basically you swallow it. It's a one-time thing, and then you are able to breathe out fire. It's a 4d12 magic fire, far range, and the item is destroyed when you use it. So it's basically like instant dragon breath.
Cool. And the wand?
And the wand, it's more or less a stick that has a spell inscribed on it, and the spell that it has is called Void Needle. It's in the Void category.
Yeah, no, I know the void needle. Okay, cool.
During your time inside this village, if you wanted to inscribe that on yourself so that you had the Void Needle spell in the future, you definitely can.
I would like to do that, but I would do it on my foot.
Okay.
Tattoos are real estate, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you gotta consider them that way. Let's be realistic about it.
I was gonna say I got a bunch. I know how that works.
Yeah. Once you got your arm, you're done with that arm. So I would that's obviously more than enough of my turn, but I would just express to the others the village's desire for us to go to this place, and I would show them the map that I've inscribed on myself, revealing the secret passage to this place. And they would know, having traveled with me for a long time, that my ink fades away.
Yeah. Do you guys want to interact with him at all when he gives you this information?
I just would ask him, how much time does the shortcuts save versus the other way?
So the long travel would probably take about 7 days, and the short travel will take 2 days.
So I say it saves us 5 days.
Yeah, and knowing that, she'd be absolutely voicing her desire to go the short way, the quicker way, in case there was something happening there, or if they could get it there before it got up. If like there was going to be like a Kebi attack on the place, so maybe we could get there before it happens.
Just from my understanding, both ways lead to the hidden entrance that the man talked about, right?
The longer route would take you to the front entrance of Heaven's Gate Temple. The short way takes you to the back.
Okay.
They definitely do not expect us to come from that part of the temple, I don't think. And the Moo would express this.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically going to climb up a cliff face. All right, so I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to get like a jump cut, and the next scene is you guys kind of like climbing over these rocks that are slightly taller than you, helping each other up kind of to get up this cliff face on the back side of the temple. And the first shot that we see, it kind of starts at the top where we can see this temple, and it shows this beautiful woman that's engraved in a stone with her arms spread wide. The stone floats slightly above the temple, and the feet of the woman kind of dangle into the courtyard of this temple. The camera fades down, and we see you guys along the cliffside. Along the way, the camera is able to see kind of these shadowy figures that are kind of hiding inside the creases and cracks of the cliffside. Jumping to you guys, the first thing that I need you guys to know is our scene DC has changed. It is a 14 normally, but because you guys are on the shortcut, it is starting with a hard applier to it. So the 14 gets a +3. Everything in this scene is a 17 for its target number. So the first thing that I need is some climb checks. So a basic strength roll with some basic effort.
So at that point, Minzo actually has a rope and hook that can be used to help us climb.
Yes.
Could it just be applied to her, or can it?
No, you guys can share it.
No, that definitely would apply to everyone, I think, logically.
Yeah, it's slower to share the tool, but you can definitely share it.
I would definitely share it with the party.
And that would lower it back down to 14, correct?
Yeah, it provides a +3 on the roll. So, okay. If you guys have cloud walking shoes, that does make a difference here. Just throwing that out there.
Not yet. Okay.
What is the modifier?
It's a +3.
No, I mean sorry, what is the stat that we're addressing?
Strength.
Ah. Okay. Still 0. But yeah, I got a 16.
I rolled a natural 20 with a +7.
Okay.
That's good. Effort,
That's good, because Karen is the only one that had trouble with the roll, it looks like. With your natural 20, though, I'm going to say that because you guys tied yourselves to each other, you were able to kind of hoist her up when she started to slip on the rocks. And you were up along this like cliffside path. This is basically a regular elevated area, but it's very narrow. It's very easy to fall off the edge here. There's not going to be any more climbing checks. This was to get to that elevated path.
I imagine it's almost like the scene from The Princess Bride where they're climbing the cliffs of insanity, and I'm Andre the Giant with like both of these guys tied to me, and I'm just pulling all of us up through sheer power and will.
Perfect. So now that you guys are on the path, I am going to start a timer. It is set to 6. You guys can hear thunder and rumbling in the distance. My timer is the weather gets worse. All right, so we will start off with Minzo. What would you like to do?
So
You've
at this
got the
point,
path ahead of you. It kind of leads up and slightly to the right, kind of curving around the backside of this cliff.
she would continue going on the path, keeping a lookout for any loose rocks or anything, so that she steps down where it's
okay.
solid.
Give me a wisdom check, and we'll treat this kind of like a perception.
Oh, I have to retire this dice. That's an 8.
An 8. Okay. What's going to end up happening is, as you are going along the path, you can feel your foot start to slip, and it feels like maybe it's just like, because you have soft shoes, most everybody does. It feels like maybe your shoe might not have caught traction, but you look down as you start to fall, and the stone that you stepped on has loosened itself. Upon further inspection from trained eyes of a salsa, you can see that this rock has been rigged to fill. I do need a dexterity save to make sure you don't fall off the cliff.
That would be a 6.
Okay, she starts falling. Anybody want to try and save her?
The Wanderer would definitely reach out and try and grab her.
Okay, cool. So I imagine it kind of like the traditional martial arts movies where you still have that line attached to you, and you're going to kind of jump off the cliff and run alongside of it.
Perfect. So would I still have the +3 if the rope's still attached to me?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. Ooh, unfortunately, that's not enough. That's a total of 11.
All right. So, Miss Karen, you are going to fall a bit of distance, not anything that should completely kill your character, but it is going to hurt quite a bad. It is 1 heart worth of damage falling from this thing. If you only have 1 heart, that means you are now in the dying category, and we have to roll a D6 for you.
Yes, I only have the 1 heart.
Okay.
It's here. Do I roll a d6?
Yeah, go ahead.
4.
Okay. So next round, starting from next round, you're going to have 4, and then you have basically 4 rounds for somebody to resuscitate you. So if anybody gets down there within that time, they're able to pull you up. If you guys want to climb down to her, it's easier to go downhill than it is uphill, even in bad weather and stuff. So it's just going to go back to a 14 DC.
I don't
Next
know.
up is Flaga.
I feel like Moo, hearing the rattling of his Kakara, this whole journey, he would be really adept at listening to sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So he would hear the fall. Despite the noise of his staff as he climbs, he would hear the fall, and his eyes would shift. And he would look to the monk, and then he would start to descend himself. But he would descend actually at a regular pace.
Okay.
Not a dash.
Okay, yeah, it'll be a strength check to get down safely. It's a DC of 14. Or target number.
Place?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm down. Okay. I got a 15.
All right, perfect. So you're able to get down there safely, and you are able to reach her. You can start your resuscitating her. Um, Actually, all you have to do is basically make contact with her and tell us how you bring her back around. It could be something as simple as "Don't die on me, man," and shake her.
I say don't die on me, and then I follow it up with chants. And as I'm chanting, you start to see I have this pauldron that the snake came from that is kind of too bulky for me. I don't really wear armor, but the pauldron is like massive on my left shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And water starts to leak out of its eyes. And it's the eyes of a dragon. And the water starts to leak out of the eyes and starts to drip down my arm and starts to snake around my forearm and then around my fingers and then into her mouth. And it starts to like resuscitate her slowly as I'm like passing my energy into her.
Okay, yeah. Give me a intelligence roll, and I'm gonna give you a bonus of, let's just say 3, like it's a toolkit, because that was a cool description. I like it.
Okay. So I got a 10 on the flat roll, and my intelligence bonus is 3, so 13.
Okay, plus 3 is 16, so you're able to beat the DC of 14, 14 in the area here. So, because the lower area isn't considered hard, it's just the upper area where the climb is.
Okay.
So, a few moments later, Minzo, you start to feel the air come back to you. It's kind of this weird sensation because it feels almost as if you're drowning, but you can push past and feel air on the other side. Um, just a quick, sharp, deep breath in, and you suddenly find your eyes open, and you see that Flaga is chanting over you.
Yeah, Minzo would take a deep gasping breath and then probably cough and sputter a little bit because of the feeling, and should be very grateful to Flaga standing there and kind of wondering, looking around like, where am I right now?
He nods to her and says the tide doesn't wait, and he grabs her hand to try to lift her up and bring her back to the task at hand.
Perfect. Yeah, you're at 1 HP now. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm looking at the rules here. It actually halts the countdown, but you're unconscious. So you're breathing. You get this moment of clarity, and then you pass out again.
Okay. So, oh man, with common supplies, would I be able to resuscitate her or no?
No, you wouldn't get the benefit of like having a medical kit if you don't have one, but you could roll to kind of like provide first aid, and it would be basic healing.
Were we gifted any kind of healing from the village?
Yeah, you have soggy rice balls.
Exactly. So I would start
You
to
could
feed
just give her one of those, and that would give her 5 hit
to
points right
feed
away.
her the soggy rice balls. Yeah. I'd feed her that,
Okay.
and she would kick back to life with rice and water in her mouth, which is kind of a shitty feeling, but at least she's alive.
I was going to say that's what you get in Shaoyun prison: rice and water.
So yeah, you'd be back to 5 HP, which I guess is half the standard at level 1.
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do to assist her getting up the cliffside at this point?
So,
How do assists work in ICRPG?
there's not really a way to provide assists. There's
I
no
know.
like hard and definite rule for it. So what I'm thinking we can do is,
I actually had an idea on this.
sure,
Since I'm still kind of at the top, could I like dangle the rope down to them and try
yeah,
and pull them
you
up?
could toss them a line, and that would definitely make it easier. So it would drop it down to a 14 instead of a 17 to get up the side. As far as like assisting goes, what I was going to say is I would count it as a +3. So basically, it dropped down to a 14 with another +3. It's an 11 now to climb up.
So I'll give her a +3 at the cost of my action, basically.
Yeah, I think that's how we can do it.
Okay, cool. I don't really know what the turn order is anymore, but I'll do that.
You're right before, so that's perfect.
Okay.
So essentially how this last round went, just to kind of clarify turn order, Grayson dropped the line, Matt, you helped, and then now it's Karen's turn to climb, and the DC is 11 for you now.
I'm scared to roll, to be honest. Oh yes, I did it. I got a 14 on the dice. So
Perfect.
yeah.
So you shimmy back up the rope.
Yes, back up to where the Wanderer is.
Wanderer, she makes it up to you. It is your turn. Are you going to stage the rope for your next compatriot to make it up?
Yes, I would definitely do that. And can I also give Minso my soggy rice ball as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So I imagine like I would pull her the rest of the way up and just like reach into a pouch and hand it to her. It's like, you need to eat to strengthen. And then he would go back and put the rope back in the right spot for the water that walks to climb up.
Okay. And Water, you will not have help, so you're at a 14.
I rolled the 17.
All right. I thought you were going to stop at 7, and I was going to be like, you could get nowhere. All right.
Nah, don't worry. It's not until we fight the big boss that I'll roll a 3.
Yeah. So you've all made it up to the cliffside. In the sake of brevity, I am going to kind of fast forward a little bit of this here because I would like you guys to get to the end, and this is intended to be a one-shot, so I don't want to get too crazy as far as like spending too much time in the encounters. You guys are able to make it up, and you make it past a few more of these kind of like treacherous traps where you step on a stone and the whole stone falls out. You've shimmied up the rocks, and as the camera's coming up, we see these shadowy figures that we thought we saw looming are bushes and plants and things like that. But it adds to kind of this element of Shaoyun has a spiritual nature. There's fae and creatures like that that are hidden in the shadows. A lot of times it's very ordinary, but these things seem to be on the edges of reality all the time. As you approach the back entrance to the temple, there's kind of this courtyard wall, and a section of the wall is in need of repair. You've pulled yourselves up, and there's a small grass area with 3 training dummies and a koi pond. There's a double set of doors that lead into the back of the temple. Once you guys open up, sorry, I was pausing for a second there. Once you guys open up the double doors, there's a soft smell of incense in here, and you find a blind old man that's hunched over from back pain, sweeping the floor, and he kind of looks up startled that you came in through the back door and is kind of looking around, trying to see who it is that came in. He's not really forming words. He's just kind of doing a lot of like, and he's like pushing his broom towards you guys. You can hear the thunder and crack of lightning. You guys barely made it up the side of the mountain before the storm got really bad again. And you can see that there's like golf ball size rain falling outside. Inside the shrine room itself, you find a pedestal that has 3 milestone rewards, one for each of you. Yay! So why don't you guys tell me about what you find inside there? The temple keeper will not stop you. He just kind of like hems and haws around you guys after you brought in rain, and he starts sweeping out the rain. He doesn't really even bother with you guys. So let's start with Minzo. What milestone reward are you going to find inside there? Karen?
Sorry, I'm just reading over the list. I think she's going to find the first one, the Jumbuck Soul.
Jumbuck Soul technique scroll. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So what that does for her is when she rolls a stealth, she only fails on a 1. So no matter what the challenge of the room is, she's always going to be able to stealth. All right, and so Wanderer, what are you going to be able? What are you finding there?
So I know you said you're not quite happy with the path of the Dojang options, but underneath the milestone you have one of them. Is that still an option, or is
it's still fine? Yeah.
Okay.
If it's written inside their class already, then that's fine.
Okay, then I would definitely like to take the Palm of Healing. Touch an ally with con, heal with magical effort.
Okay, excellent.
And I imagine the way that looks is it's like a piece of obsidian. And like as he picks it up, it just kind of melds into his hand, and he feels this heat disperse throughout his arm. But it's not like a harmful heat. It feels like calming and natural, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, and for Flaga?
Flaga, he doesn't notice that he finds anything in this place at all. He walks in, and as he's walking with his staff, because he usually uses it as support, because the left side of his body is pretty badly burned and maimed. He covers it in cloth, but nevertheless, it is weaker than his right side, so he uses the staff to support himself as he walks. And as he hits a point of the room, the staff depresses a fragment of the floor, and it sinks ever so slightly, and the rings on his staff start to light and vibrate, and a like deafening sound happens for a moment, and he looks around at the others, and they're actually not aware of it. Time is still, and his ring staff is ringing for him alone. And he picks it up, and the floor panel resides to its regular state, and the staff stops, and time goes back to normal, and everything proceeds as it was. And he doesn't know what really happened. But what I'm going to express this as is the blessed mark.
Okay.
On his, it's specifically tied to his ring staff, but it's the blessed mark. So he's unaware of the forces at work, but he's looking around, and he's aware that something happened.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so feeling empowered and with milestones in hand, we get another scene of you guys pressing forward. Again, I'm going to kind of super fast us to the boss here. We get you guys pressing forward into this hallway that has these lanterns along these pillars. The lanterns themselves have a blue light, and when you look at them, it doesn't look like the light dances like a flame would, but it moves like water does. They don't give off any heat. The light itself is very like ambient lighting, and there's a blue flame that again moves more like a wave than necessarily a fire. And this gigantic like bronze bowl that's atop of like a about 8 feet of stairs at the end of this temple way. You can hear what sounds like whispering from 4 to 5 different voices, very different, distinct voices, whispering different things, like who are they? What have they come for? And they're just talking over each other. These candle-like things that are along the walls begin to swish and move, and you can almost hear the sound of either a rushing river or possibly like a swell of water.
I think upon like basically the very first step that he encounters these, Flaga would pass his hand through one and realize that it's like water through his physical experience.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the noise of these many voices coming out of this thing, the snake.
Let me set the room DC real quick here before we continue. The room DC is a 13.
The snake would begin to coil out of the eyes of the dragon pauldron and kind of peek its head curiously, as Flaga is also curious. And I would like to try to establish an understanding of this.
Sure.
DM, what does that mean?
So make an attempt either intelligence or wisdom against the room DC, so 13.
I rolled a 10 and I have a +3. So I met it just narrowly.
All right. So just kind of looking these over, they're sometimes called different things. What you would know them as is they're typically referred to as water lanterns in the southern parts of Shaoyun. But it's a little bit of a misnomer. They're not exactly water per se. They are guardian spirits that have been tied to this location to protect it. Usually they have more of a greenish tint to them, but these ones are blue for some reason.
Would I have, coming from a water temple, would I have a established language with them or no?
You know what? I don't want to say no. So yeah, you do. But to establish or to begin that conversation, because it's like a ritual thing,
like a human understanding of an alien language.
Yeah.
I try to envision it as.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take you at least a full round to be able to start to get some information from them.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask the question. Cool.
Okay. So, Minzo, you get to go first. What would you like to do in this room? You can feel that there's something uneasy in the air. It's like a pressure. There is a counter in place right now. that has 4 on it.
So all we see right now is those lanterns. There's nothing else in this room with this feeling.
Yeah, there's really nothing else in the room, but there's this feeling, and you can hear the whispers. Like I said, it sounds like 6 different voices around you that it's hard to pin what direction they're coming from because it feels like you're surrounded.
I would like to actually move into the room, kind of quietly, and try to find maybe like a little nook or an outcropping that she could hide in.
So I'm gonna put this picture in the center of my thing and make it kind of big here. This is pretty much the kind of room that you guys are in right now. You're kind of inside that walkway in the center.
Okay, yeah, so Minza would definitely actually go to the edge where it's darker, so that she could hide and maybe get the drop on if something pops up on them. So she's gonna skirt through the outskirts, cannot talk, skirt the outside of the room.
Okay. So, do you want to go ahead and stealth yourself? That way you're ready for it, or are you looking to just kind of get along the edges?
I would like to stealth myself.
Okay, excellent. So just give me a dex. If it's a 1, you fail because of the new item. If not, then it's a pass.
The pass. I did not roll a 1. Excellent.
So Minzo kind of slips into the shadows, and it seems like this is why you keep her around. She just disappears. It's hard to even be able to even pick up a sound of her, whether it's these spiritual voices that are talking that are kind of drowning her out, or otherwise. Wanderer, it's your turn.
So the Wanderer, he's hearing these voices, and to him they sound uneasy, agitated, and he knows that this is a temple, and the proper thing to do at temples is to make offerings. So he would head up to that main altar type thing at the end of the walkway, and he would pull out 25 gold and just leave it as an offering and say a quick prayer. Hopefully,
okay.
Easing these agitated spirits.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know what I'll do. Okay. I'm not going to reveal what happens, but you have an effect on the room.
Okay.
Comes back to Flaga. After spending kind of around deciphering and trying to listen to these things, while tuning out these other voices that are going on, you can feel kind of unrest in the Guardians. It's almost as if they're being orchestrated and moved, almost like the Dokebi were.
Okay. I would like to I lean into one, and to describe fully Flaga, he's got on his left side of his face, it is fully scarred and maimed by a burn. And he covers most of his body on the left side with cloth. He also has a cloak. He also has a pauldron on that side where the snake resides. On his right side, there is no pauldron, and he has a free hand, and it is perfectly unmarred flesh. He also has perfectly straight violet hair on that side of his head. And his eye is actually good on that side of his head. And he actually reaches into this water. And I don't know what effect that has, but he actually puts his fingers into it. Puts his whole hand into it.
Okay. I need a strength check because you just found one of the creatures in this room. Because there's something that's going to reach back when you reach in.
That's okay. Strength check. 13.
Okay. So a 13 does succeed. You're able to pull your hand back, but you can feel, you reach in and you feel kind of like this very light touch along your skin. And then as you're kind of thinking about what was that, you feel a hand kind of start to wrap itself around your wrist. And you're able to jerk your hand free before it happens.
Can I interject and say
Yeah.
I don't jerk my hand free?
Okay.
As it starts to wrap its way around my wrist, I would like to apply my exorcism.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a good way to face this.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to face it. I didn't even consider that as a way to take care of this problem, to be honest.
Well, you need people like me.
Yeah, no, that's good. Because the spirits are possessed by something else.
So, exorcism. Chanting mantras while concentrating. So I start to chant my original temple's mantras, which are long forgotten, as it is the burn temple. It is the temple that went away due to corruption. But I chant these mantras while concentrating on the water, and for 1d4 rounds near range, once complete bench. Okay. So what do I have to check on this?
Okay, so what's going to end up happening is first you're going to do an intelligence roll to see if you cast it.
Okay.
After you've started it, basically we roll a d4 and see how many rounds it takes you to banish this thing. You don't have to keep doing casting rolls.
You know me, I'm casting it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
In the narrative. So okay. So I actually rolled an 18. And what do I add to that kind of thing?
So this spell doesn't do direct damage, so you're not going to roll effort. Instead, right now you're going to roll a d4, and that'll tell us how many rounds it takes. But because you were successful in 1d4 rounds, basically it creates a countdown. That thing's going to be banished completely.
I rolled 3.
All right, so in 3 rounds, it'll be banished. There are other things that are going to happen, like that spirit's probably going to try and kill you. And that will take turn by turn, basically, so long as you tell me you're concentrating, which doesn't take any real effort, kind of like it does in 5th edition. You're going to be able to continue the mantras and banishing it.
Well, I'm trying to banish the presence that has a hold of these water spires.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the presence that I'm fighting?
That is the presence that has now grabbed your wrist.
Okay. As long as it's not the water spires themselves.
Yeah.
I'd feel bad.
No, you're just gonna be taken care of because the good thing about exorcism is it is specific for Fae and evil spirits. So the guardian spirits are not evil.
I know if I apply it that it worked.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, as I start to chant, what does it look like? Like what is the different experience on this water that I've allowed to creep up my arm?
Yeah, so this thing happens to have a turn after you. So this is how we as an audience are going to greet this creature. It's called a Mulguishin. Mulguishin is a drowned spirit of a young girl that died in a river. They're horrifying and terrible. If you've ever seen The Ring, that thing that looks like a little girl that comes out of the well, that's a Mulguishin. She grabs your wrist and pulls you in. She's black and covered with mold. Her hair is just completely floating around her like this tangled tentacle mess. You find yourself inside this water lantern, which normally should not be big enough to support you. Everybody who's been on the outside, I'm going to say at least Minzo definitely saw this happen. He got yanked into an impossibly small area. And you can hear what sounds like splashing of a river. that's kind of the giveaway that he's been sucked into this alternate realm.
This is amazing. Okay.
Welcome to the drowned court, my friend. This thing has, yeah, this thing has pulled you into the drowned court of the Fey realm.
Real talk, they're supposed to be my allies, but it's like human religion doesn't mean shit.
This thing is an evil spirit. It just happens to be residing inside the Fey realm because it's an easy place to drown people.
I know. I get it. He's a monster.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I feel like that makes Flogga the water that walks actually kind of like superstitiously calm in this situation. Because if he was dealing with fire, he'd be having like PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's dealing with water, he's like, come on, old soldier, come back.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've really gotten to talk too much about the drowned court, at least in a long time since your last character.
Which is great.
The drowned court, it feels like an underwater realm. You could find yourself in this kind of in-between state where you feel like you can't breathe, but you are able to somehow. There is like an 80-foot long koi fish that swims by as this thing's trying to pull you deeper and deeper into the water. The realm feels unnatural. Things are much larger here and twisted unnaturally. Like the koi fish had coral formations growing on it. And it looked like small children of like a fey creature, probably like elves and things like that, playing on its back like it's a playground. You can hear almost this drifting song that if you were to speak with superstitious sailors, they would swear it's the Song of Sirens. And it's kind of permanent inside the waters. All right, so for its turn, it's going to pull you deeper. Do you have any bonuses to your con?
1.
All right, cool. So I can get rid of my room timer because that's when the Mulgushin was going to surprise you. Instead, I'm going to do a drowning timer. Yay! You said you've got a +1. All right, cool. So in 6 rounds, we're going to say that you become dead and start the dead timer if you are not able to get out of this place. Because you do suffer drowning in here.
That's fine.
Another kind of side effect of this realm is as she pulls you deeper, there's like this weird effect where it feels like you are becoming smaller or she is becoming bigger. It's hard to tell.
And I'm kind of like slightly at peace while suffering.
Mm-hmm. So for the other two, because it's going to come around to Minso's turn, you saw him get sucked into a small lantern.
So this lantern, though, it's like it's got a physical
Yeah,
form,
it looks
right?
like a paper lantern. It's about 12 inches in height. It's hung up on a wall on like a little hook. He opened up the door and stuck his hand inside the flame thing that's inside there. Did not seem to get burned. And then all of a sudden he was sucked in a few moments later. Yes, the target number is still the same. It's still 13.
So is it high up, or can I actually like hit it from the ground? Like, no, he put his hand in.
Yeah, you could target it. You could put your hand in it. You can interact with it.
I am going to. What's it hanging from? Is it just floating, or is it actually hanging from?
It's actually kind of there's, if you look at it, there's like a 3-inch area below it where there's nothing, and then it stands above on the floor. So it's about 15 inches in height in total. I said an iron hook, but I decided to change that because it looks cooler if I describe it this way.
Minzo would actually try to I guess, kind of like, I want to say destroy it, but knock it over or somehow open it up, because he's gone inside, and she's going to try to get him out, like destroy the. I want to destroy the lamp. Really, is what I would.
Okay, yeah. You can go ahead and how are you gonna do it? Do you want to like knock it over, or do you want to shoot it with a bow?
I think she would try to knock it over. I don't think a bow doesn't seem like it would do too much. So
Okay.
she would come from her hiding and.
This is basically a paper lantern. This is beyond easy. Just roll and don't give me a 1 and you've knocked it over. I mean,
I'm so scared to roll. I rolled a 15 on the die.
Perfect. So you knock it over, and as soon as it's moved from its place, water starts pouring out of the lantern, and it's uncontrollable. Like it's just filling the room now. It's not overwhelming, but after a few rounds, this room's going to have a lot of water, and it'll be like knee deep in about 6 rounds or so.
She looks to the Wanderer and is like, "Where did he go? What's happening here?"
Wanderer, it is your turn.
He would reply with "I do not know." He has a very dry, raspy voice, but he thinks to himself, "Why does it have to be water?" And he thinks very logically. He thinks that if something can pull somebody in, then maybe something can pull somebody out. So he would move over to this knockover lantern, and not knowing if it would work or not, he would put his his arm inside it, trying to grasp for the water that walks, and hopefully it works and doesn't pull me in.
Okay. So, yeah, you reach in, and there's really no attempt to be made. You don't feel anybody reaching for you. He's actually too far at the moment to be able to do anything about it, at least instantaneously. When it gets to his turn, Matt may choose to go after that free arm that's sticking out. Like, I'd say it's probably about far distance from you now, Matt. It is your turn.
I see that far arm, and I reach down and grab the water below me and put my hands into it so that at least my fingertips are submerged. And I perform exorcism again.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have to perform it again. You're just continuing it.
Okay. So
cool. So like there's
exactly.
You're not going to have to do any sort of like die rolls or anything like that.
Are you sure?
Yep. Normally, well, like once you cast it, it's just a matter of turns before it happens. Other things can happen inside here. So if you wanted to like punch, kick, fight it, you can still do those things.
Okay. So how many turns again until it like takes effect?
It's for that one, you've got 3 rounds left.
And how many until I die from drowning?
You got 6 rounds on that one.
Okay. So
I've got D6s in front of me to help me too.
Well, it's a lot of time counters, right?
Yeah.
So what will I do? I'll
yeah, to give you an idea, for the Moo, the sealing ritual spell, that one specifically says you need to succeed an int roll to maintain it each turn. That one's different than exorcism. Exorcism, once you start casting it, basically you just keep saying mantras for the amount of rounds that it is.
So what's happening around me? Can I do anything but say mantras or no?
Yeah, anything that doesn't require talking, because that'll break you from saying mantras.
Okay. So what's around me? Explain the mood of the room.
Yeah. So you've been brought lower and lower, and then there's this weird inversion effect that happens, and then all of a sudden you find your feet planted on what could be best described as a surface almost. You can see a ripple
in the water.
Excuse me, from underneath where your feet touched. Yeah, you're completely submerged. It's a very strange place being in the Fey world. And it's almost as if you hit like a floor, but there's still water below you. You can see things moving around underneath you, and the hand that was holding your leg is massive. It's like it's holding you by an index finger and a thumb now, but the creature itself is underneath this surface that you've stopped on, and it's attempting to pull you deeper. It's basically behind a barrier that it was able to pull itself out of to start doing the possession, and it's trying to drag you into its barrier. You know that whoever put this barrier here was a powerful Mu that was probably from ages past.
Sure. I with my feet on this artificial ground within the water, I look around and I wonder to myself, has any priest of my temple ever experienced the realm of water the way I have now? Is it only through hostility that we are introduced to these elements? And I'll reach out and I'll try to speak with the force that is holding me down and convince it that perhaps I am not its enemy.
Are you going to break your mantras to be able to do that?
Yeah, no. Chanting.
Yep. That's really the only downside to using this, is you can't talk.
So is there any like physical obvious sign of this entity? Despite this, like it's the feeling of its pinking finger holding me.
Oh no, it's a physical like index finger and a thumb holding you of a woman that is basically like 20 feet tall. She's covered in mold and seaweed. She's attempting to pull you down and eat you.
With that said, if I'm allowed to continue chanting, I will like wield my ring staff and try to slash through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
With like spiritual force.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's going to be a strength attempt because it's still a weapon. But because of your new enhancement, you can use your blessed mark and roll for ultimate on damage.
Yes. What's the ultimate? Like D12?
Yeah, that's D12.
Okay.
This is very much an undead creature that has been banished to a realm that it does not belong into, so it's been tormented.
It's undead for sure?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a ghost.
Okay. Well, that affects things, I think. So okay, my attack on its own before, would it be a magic attack or would it just be my base attack before the ultimate kicks in?
So let me just look at it real quick here, because I'm going to play test it the way I wrote it in case I made any mistakes. Let's see.
Well, yeah.
Always add ultimate damage when fighting to weapon attacks. So basically you're going to roll an attack. You'll roll the weapon die and roll an ultimate effort because I said add.
Well, I have to roll my attempt first, right?
Yeah. Which will be a strength attempt because it's just swinging a staff. Nothing's changed there.
Okay, cool. So my strength attempt is 12.
All right. So with a 12, that is shy of the 13. The staff's going to go singing by. Your rings continue to produce sound even inside the water.
Okay.
Perfect. And next is going to be its turn, and I'm going to advance clocks. So let me do that real quick here. Small bubble of air escapes your mouth as you chant your mantras. The creature hisses, hearing these mantras, and a second hand comes up and it starts like grinding its nails against this artificial surface that you're standing on. And you can see these furrow lines as it's trying to break through the barrier that has bound it to this realm. For in the room with the other two, what you're going to see is the other paper lanterns that have water start shaking, and a couple of them fall off. Let's see. 3 of them fall off, and more water starts coming inside the room. By next turn, right now it's to your knees. It'll be about to mid-chest. It's going to start flooding faster and faster in this room. It's about here when you start to realize that enough of these lanterns go down, the water doesn't seem to be stopping. It will flood this whole temple. And then it's going to take its attacks. So against the moo here, that is a hit for, where's my magic die? All right, cool. So you can feel its thumb and index finger kind of pinch into your leg, and the nail on the index finger bites into your skin. It's hot, as if like the venom of a serpent bit into you. It's 3 points of magic damage. You got that, Matt?
Yes.
Perfect. Next up is going to be Minzo. The room is flooding quickly around you.
Yeah, so having knocked over the lantern and now it's flooding the entire room, she realized that probably wasn't a very good thing to do. So she would try to scramble to try and grab it to maybe put it back on its pedestal where it was before, to see if it would stop spewing out the water.
Yeah, this doesn't take a roll. It's going to take your whole action to kind of get it back in place properly, though. As soon as you get it back in place, it stops flooding. But there are other lanterns that have fallen as well inside the room. So this might be a good way to at least contain the water. Next is going to be Wanderer.
So what he would do is, I imagine he still has that rope from earlier, and he would quickly tie one end around his waist and the other end to something substantial in the room, and look over at Minzo and say, "I'm going in after him. Do what you can." And then he'll try and try and make it through one of these lanterns to go get his friend.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of take a dive towards this lantern, knowing that it's clearly magic. Something's going to happen, and it's almost like you've dove headfirst into a river. You find yourself again in kind of this strange world. There's this giant octopus with these flower-looking patterns all over its the surface of its skin, and it just kind of like wings its way past you the way that octopus typically travel through water. You're kind of disorientated at first, looking around to see what is up and what is down, and where you would think that that Flaga would be, he's not in that direction. From the way you came into this world, he's actually above you, and you can see this creature that is attempting to get at him. You are able to see the bottom of this barrier. Basically, this creature is trapped inside a big spherical barrier, and Flaga is on what would be the top opposite of you. You can move towards it, but it'll be a far action and take your whole turn to get over there.
Okay, that's exactly what he would do.
Okay, cool.
He would just be swimming as hard as he can, trying to make it to his friend, but he's not accustomed to the water, so it's hard going.
Since you weren't surprised coming in, you get a number of turns equal to what your con that you can hold your breath, and then we start drowning.
Okay, my con is +1.
All right, so you get 1 round where you are not considered drowning. Good job for investing in con. All right, cool. So I've got a timer on my end for you as well. Next turn is Flaga. Flaga, your mantra clock has clicked over to 0. You can feel the power coursing through you. Describe what it looks like as you break the spell over the water spirits that form those protective guardian lanterns in the real world. What kind of change will Minzo see?
Well, I feel like his left arm would have been flailing like any other humans would, and his legs would have been doing the same. But his right arm was stiff on this staff, this ring staff, this Kakara. And is that how you say it?
The Kakara? Yeah.
Yes, it would be on this Kakara, and it would be holding on to it despite the fact that it was not moving fast enough to make a sound, not moving fast enough to make its presence in the spiritual realm, even in this plane of water. But despite being torn apart, despite being ripped at by these limbs of water, he just garnered enough strength to like wrap his hands around this staff and jam it down enough to ring those rings of the Kakara so that they reverberate out from the water, and this spiritual power explodes out from him as a avatar of water himself. He takes command of this realm just for a moment. As a human, he will never be its sovereign. But for this moment, they realize that he is their extension in the living world of Shaoyun. And it reverberates out from him. And it affects all that are listening within this realm at the moment, as his exorcism like takes place and unravels the possession of a darker force on these water powers that he is supposed to have control over.
Perfect. So for Minzo, on your end, one of the things that you do notice is that the lanterns become lighter. The light that they give off is a little bit closer towards like a candlelight instead of this eerie blue light. The water seems quelled. The sound of like sloshing ocean coming from the bigger kind of shrine area has eased back. The lanterns that had fallen off that you were trying to get back into position, they've stopped spewing water out of them. The ones that are in position still have an access to the watery realm that the other two have disappeared into, though. The gate is still open, I should say. All right. So it is Timer's turn. So let me do that real quick. And that one goes away. Cool. All right. So 4 rounds left for drowning. For Flaga, and then this turn forward, Wanderer is going to start drowning. So that'll be D6 for Wanderer. Okay, 4 rounds after this one. The creature inside the protective dome hisses, and then the dome itself goes black, and it becomes like this gigantic black pearl that is floating in the middle of the ocean. And after a few moments, your mantras have been completed. Wanderer, you're going to be the first one to see this thing come forward, but this gigantic eel-like creature comes out from the depths of the darkest of waters, and it opens its mouth and inside you see what can best be described as like an elf, but there's coral inside her hair. She has brine attached to her, some feeder fish taking from like growths and polyps that have been decorated on her body, much the way that humans would wear clothing. She carries a trident that is made of different seashells, and she's riding inside the mouth of this just enormous eel that is of ridiculous proportions. It would be the size of a dragon in Shaoyun. Just huge, be able to coil around mountains and sort of thing. This thing comes up and it closes its mouth around the pearl. Not quite big enough to be able to bite, to swallow it, but to bite onto it. And you can see the elf woman with the spear put her hand up to the black orb, and she begins singing to it. And that siren song that you've heard throughout the entire area of everything since you've been in this water becomes louder, and it becomes more musical. You can start to hear the words. They're almost painful. In fact, she's going to make an attempt on everything around her. Cool. Now she gets to do magic damage to everyone. All right, so that's going to be, let's see, 6 points of damage to everything in the water. For Minzo, on your end, you can hear a beautiful lyrical music that is drawing you closer to the lanterns. You can choose how to act on that, but there is like this like subconscious thing that says go to the lanterns, go in them kind of feeling. The eel itself has clamped down on the pearl, and it's attempting to drag it below. You guys can interact how you would like with that, but without interactions, she's about to make off with the Mulguishen. First up is Minzo.
Minzo feels this pull, and she noticed the light, how light changed. But I think this pull is kind of starting to affect her a little bit. But her first goal was to get the rest of these lanterns that have fallen and put them back up where this temple, like the way they were before we got here and the temple started having this issue. So that's her main goal right now, is to get the rest of the lanterns back up where they should be.
Okay. So, yeah, it doesn't take you too long. You're able to do that this turn. There's one lantern that will be left when you're done with this turn that'll need to be replaced. Next is going to be Wanderer.
So this water woman in the mouth of the eel, even though she did hurt me and Flaga, it seems like she's trying to attack the evil spirit, correct?
Yeah, it's hard to tell what exactly she was hurting, because you even saw the eel kind of get pain from it that she was riding in.
As this song spreads throughout the water, you can see that the wanderer bubbles escaping from his mouth as he screams out in pain. But he steels himself and pushes that last little stretch to grab Flaga, and then begins trying to pull himself and Flaga out with the rope.
Okay. Flaga, do you have any reason to stop him from helping you?
Do I feel like it inherently was made after my exorcism?
I'm sorry, repeat that for me.
You feel like I feel like things have changed. Okay. So physically, things have changed. Around me, the entire world has gone opaque. But after the exorcism, what else do I know?
The Mulgushen, its barrier turned into a black pearl that was swallowed by gigantic eel. You got that part right?
100% I got that part.
Cool. The world around you is still the Fey realm, so it doesn't feel like the realm has changed. You quickly feel your connection
in that
easing back.
black pearl, I guess I'm asking.
No, you're not. You're at like the surface of it. In fact, it's being pulled away from you.
Okay, so I would just embrace my friend. And
Okay, cool.
Try to escape this realm with him.
Again, from the Wanderer's perspective, he's seen Flaga perform exorcisms before. What he thinks is that Flaga somehow summoned this beautiful water woman to come handle this evil spirit, is what he thinks. And that's
okay,
why
yeah.
We need to get out of here. It's now his top priority.
Yeah. What Flaga knows about like the forces that he deals with is that they're on his side, but they're not necessarily not hostile.
Mm-hmm. So
he's eager to take a hand, and he'll extend his weak hand that is gloved, while his staff hand is still pointed towards the sphere.
So moments later, they come out of one of these water lanterns, and they're inside the temple shrine with Minzo, breathing heavy, spitting out water. Flaga has been in there the longest and probably pukes a little at first because that's what typically happens with anybody that goes through drowning.
Not to mention, I only have 1 health left.
Yep.
So
and
whatever that's represented as.
Yeah.
Playing for him.
And because this is like the drown court where Fae come from, like when he pukes up this water, it's not just like, it's like seawater that he's puking up, but also like there's like a super small mermaid that comes out of his mouth. It's basically what would be the drown court equivalent to a brownie. It's like a burly man on top and a minnow on bottom.
And black as the darkest night seaweed.
Yeah.
Starts to rush out of his mouth. And it seems like Flaga could never contain this amount, but it might not have been the first time they've seen him engage with the drown court, so I don't know how prepared they are for this.
The little brownie will return to his own realm, crawling into a lantern. There's a few moments, and those of you that cross the barrier are more in tune with it at the moment, but you can feel that the gateway has closed. The lanterns have returned to what they have always been. They are protector spirit lanterns, and Grayson, you can, or not Grayson, sorry, Wanderer, since you are a child of the Lotus, you can feel that they are normally in line with the elemental plane of water. It seems like they have realigned themselves. So instead of being attached to the Fey Court water realm, which is toxic and strange, it's more of a natural water that it should be aligned with. And it feels like it's returned to that.
I turned to the others and asked them.
I'm going to roll my end of session die here. We've got 1 round before the end of session. This is your last round to do stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so Minzo, you get to start things off.
So Minzo, seeing that they have come back to this realm, she would, and it looks actually a little worse for wear, she would actually give each of them one of these soggy rice balls, think it's kind of fitting that they're wet. They're going to eat this wet rice. And she would hand that to them, and then she would try to put the last lantern back up on its pedestal.
So you're splitting it up?
Well, I had 2 left because Wanderer gave me his, and I had 1.
Amazing.
Okay. Wanderer, it's your turn.
So imagine the Wanderer is still coughing up a little bit of water before he eats this delicious rice ball. And he looks over at the water that walks and says, "Can we not do that ever again, please? It was rather unpleasant." And he would take a bite of the rice ball.
Perfect. And Flaga.
Flaga would probably turn to the monk with some pieces of rice in his beard, and he would smile and say, "I am happy to be alive, friend. But what we need to know is how these forces affected the goblins and why they attacked our village. The village will need to know. At the very least, we need to bring back their provisions. This is their sacred place. Let us loot it, at least to bring back what they have lost to these forces." And I will kind of like slump down on my staff, obviously exhausted by the trials that were, but I'm still trying to be a leader, given that one is needed. And I will retire on the staff despite my efforts, falling asleep, kind of like half slumped, half knelt, holding up the staff. The sounds of the rings silent for a moment as I rest.
The camera pulls back from the group as they take their moment of rest inside the shrine room. And we find that the camera pulls into the rafters. It goes dark. The credits fly by. And of course, we get the post-credit scene where it shows a scene of the drowned court. And in subtitles, because none of us here speak Elven language, of course, you can see that the woman that pulled the pearl back is speaking to the pearl about how the plan did not go the way she expected it to. But it doesn't seem like they've made the connection yet between the spirits of the dead and the spirits of nature itself. We'll see the Moo again. It's never long between his visits, is it? And she kind of like pets the pearl one more time. And then we get that final closing credit where it's like, "To be continued." So this has been a one-shot for Shaoyun, setting for Index Card RPG 2nd edition. I was a little rough with it. You guys were a little rough with it, but I think we had a good time with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. For anybody who catches this video afterward, if you guys liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. This is the first video for Battle Corp Roleplay. It's a combined effort with myself and quite a few other people like Lloyd Collins, Jeff Doty, Marquise, and we've got Rob Coletta as well, looking to put out some games where we focus more on the roleplay aspect than necessarily the mechanical. Tonight was more mechanical because I'm stretching out mechanics on purpose, but as the games get developed and we play more Shaoyun, I have a feeling that we're going to get more into stuff like the final scene where things are kind of weird and spiritual and kind of strange in the Fey realm. That sort of thing should feel about home for Shaoyun. So for anybody who tunes in and checks it out, thank you very much. And we'll see you later.